A simple woman dared to raise her paddle at an elite auction, and everyone laughed at her. Her modest black dress and absence of jewelry seemed to scream outsider in this world of privilege. When the auctioneer hesitated to accept her bid, her humiliation was complete. No one could have imagined that moments later, her billionaire husband would transform this scene of mockery into a moment that none present would ever forget. The Northbridge auction house gleamed like a private constellation, its mahogany-paneled walls and crystal chandeliers reflecting the opulence of those present. Olivia discreetly adjusted her simple black dress, a practical choice that now stood in painful contrast to the designer gowns and extravagant jewelry adorning the other women. She didn't belong in this world, but she had a purpose greater than social discomfort. Hidden among the auction treasures was a 19th century botany book containing the annotations of her grandfather's mentor, not just a relic, but a bridge to her past. Her grandfather, a university professor from humble origins, had dedicated his life to those plants, studying their medicinal secrets to help communities without access to conventional treatments. "This book isn't just knowledge, Livy," he would always say, his eyes twinkling as he showed her drawings of leaves and flowers in his own worn notebooks. "It's proof that nature recognizes no social barriers. Its cures are for everyone." Dan had promised to meet her, but his flight from Chicago was delayed. "Go ahead," he had insisted. "That book is part of who you are." As Olivia thumbed through the catalog with slightly trembling hands, she felt the weight of glances around her, not of curiosity, but of silent judgment that would quickly transform into something far worse. The elegant Northbridge salon hummed with exclusive conversations when Victoria Sinclair made her grand entrance. Her presence commanded immediate attention, an impeccable Chanel suit, glittering diamonds, and that air of someone born to belong. Her eyes quickly found Olivia, the anomaly in a sea of calculated perfection. What an interesting surprise! Victoria glided toward Olivia, champagne flute held aloft like a scepter. Someone lost their way to... where exactly? Olivia stood her ground. "I'm here for Lot 42, the Thornwell Botany book." Victoria raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "That starts at $50,000, dear. Certainly not in your... budget?" A small group nearby observed the scene discreetly, contained smiles on their faces. "I'm perfectly aware of the value," Olivia replied, her voice calm yet determined. Victoria made a languid gesture to an assistant. "James, could you verify if our guest is qualified for this event? There seems to be a misunderstanding." The young man approached uncomfortably. "Ma'am, we need to confirm your financial pre-qualification for bids above $20,000. "I have the qualification to be here," Olivia answered, a soft blush coloring her cheeks. "Evidently we need more than your word," Victoria smiled, venom disguised as courtesy. "Rules exist for a reason." When the auction formally began, Olivia was subtly shifted to a less visible corner. Occasional glances were cast in her direction, some curious, others openly derisive. The auctioneer proceeded methodically through the lots, his measured voice echoing through the salon. Olivia remained patient, focused on her mission. That book was more than an object. It was her grandfather's legacy, a man who dedicated his life to using botanical knowledge to help the underprivileged. Lot 42, first edition of Expeditionary Flora, with marginal annotations by Professor William Thornwell. Opening bid, $50,000, the auctioneer finally announced. Olivia raised her paddle with determination. Victoria, who was conversing with a nearby couple, abruptly stopped. A calculating smile formed on her lips as she walked purposefully to the auctioneer, whispering something in his ear. "Pardon me, ladies and gentlemen." The auctioneer cleared his throat, uncomfortable. "It appears we need to verify something before proceeding with this lot." All eyes turned to Olivia, creating an almost physical weight. As committee chairwoman, Victoria projected her voice for the entire room. "I must ensure the integrity of this event. Some items require additional verification of financial capacity." "I've already provided all necessary documentation," Olivia replied, maintaining her composure despite the growing embarrassment. "Perhaps," Victoria smiled coldly, "but there was clearly some error in judgment in allowing your participation." Tense silence dominated the room. Even those who had been animatedly conversing now watched the drama unfold. "This book," Olivia began, her voice firmer, "contains annotations by my grandfather's mentor. It has personal significance." "Sentiment," Victoria countered, "doesn't pay $50,000. The auctioneer, pressured by Victoria's social influence, visibly hesitated. "Perhaps we should temporarily suspend this lot." It was at that moment that the auction house's main telephone rang insistently. The manager was urgently called, returning seconds later with a completely transformed expression. Victoria, still positioned as the victor of that social confrontation, didn't notice the sudden change in atmosphere. "As I was saying," she continued with growing authority, "some places require more than simply showing up." The double doors of the salon swung open. Time seemed to freeze when Daniel Foster entered the auction hall. His impeccable navy blue suit emanated a quiet authority, but it was his gaze, intense and focused, that instantly altered the dynamics of the environment. He didn't need to announce his presence. His business empire and billion-dollar fortune spoke for themselves. A collective murmur swept through the room. Victoria, still in the middle of her triumphant declaration, noticed the sudden change and turned to identify the cause. Recognition crossed her face in successive waves: surprise, confusion, and finally growing horror as Dan walked directly to Olivia, ignoring important figures who tried to capture his attention. "Sorry I'm late, darling," he said, his voice calm but audible to everyone. The plane finally landed. Dan placed his hand gently on Olivia's shoulder, a silent demonstration of unity that spoke volumes. His eyes, however, scanned the environment with clinical precision, registering every detail of the scene. "Mr. Foster," the auction manager hurried in his direction. "What an unexpected honor to have you with us. Had we known—" "It seems you were having some difficulty with my wife's bid," Dan interrupted smoothly, his tone balanced between courtesy and steel. Victoria visibly paled, her lips trying to form words that wouldn't come. "Your wife?" she finally managed to articulate. Dan turned to her with a look that communicated complete understanding of the situation. Without changing his tone, he asked, "The auction for the Thornwell book was in progress, correct? Please continue." The salon remained in absolute silence, the balance of power completely reversed in a matter of seconds. Silence fell absolute as Dan Foster advanced through the salon with deliberate steps. His gaze, fixed and resolute, never strayed from Olivia, ignoring the influential figures attempting to capture his attention along the way. The mahogany walls seemed to absorb all sound, the crystal chandeliers suspended in their golden glow as if time itself had paused to witness what would unfold. "Mr. Foster," the manager began nervously, his voice cracking slightly as he recognized one of America's wealthiest men. "What an unexpected surprise." "Continue the auction," Dan interrupted firmly, positioning himself beside Olivia. Their shoulders touched, a small gesture that spoke volumes to everyone watching. The entire salon froze. Victoria Sinclair, her triumphant expression still frozen on her face, visibly paled upon recognizing the billionaire. The perfect mask she had worn all evening cracked as realization dawned in her ice-blue eyes. "Lot 42, the auctioneer resumed with a trembling voice, adjusting his bow tie with a finger. "First edition of Expeditionary Flora with Marginalia by Professor William Thornwell. The current bid is at $50,000. $1 million, Dan declared without hesitation, his voice carrying effortlessly across the stunned room. The announcement fell like lightning across the salon. Gasps escaped from meticulously lipsticked mouths. A waiter nearly dropped his tray of champagne flutes. It wasn't just the astronomical value, 20 times the opening bid, but the speed and conviction with which it was uttered. No negotiation, no social game, just pure, indisputable power. Victoria's face transformed into a mask of horror and humiliation, the color draining from her cheeks as if someone had opened a valve. Her friends, who moments before had been laughing at her side, now imperceptibly distanced themselves, champagne glasses lowered, eyes averted, as if fearing contamination by association. The businessmen who had previously ignored Olivia now studied her with renewed fascination, completely reassessing everything they thought they knew. $1 million from Mr. Foster, the auctioneer stammered, his gavel hand visibly shaking. He desperately looked around the room, scanning for other bids he knew wouldn't come. Any other interest for this extraordinary volume? Silence was his only response. No one dared even breathe deeply. A woman's pearl necklace clicked softly against her collarbone as she swallowed hard. "Sold to Mr. Daniel Foster and his wife," he finally declared, bringing down the gavel with a crack that echoed through the salon like a gunshot. Dan gently placed his arm around Olivia's waist, pulling her closer in a simple gesture that said everything. There was no need for elaborate speeches or explanations. The message was crystal clear to everyone present. That woman in a simple black dress, whom everyone had despised, belonged there as much as, or more than, any of them. As the couple calmly headed to claim the item, the buzz of voices began to grow throughout the salon. Nervous glances, frantic whispers, some nervous laughter. The social fabric of the elite being rewritten in real time before their eyes. An elderly lady with a diamond brooch leaned toward her companion. "I always said there was something special about her. Didn't you notice her posture? Breeding always shows itself." A banker who had earlier turned away from Olivia now desperately tried to make eye contact with Dan, straightening his Italian silk tie. A socialite who had snickered at Olivia's appearance suddenly found her 4-carat necklace feeling uncomfortably tight, like a collar. Victoria remained paralyzed near the podium, her champagne flute forgotten in her manicured hand, the golden liquid as motionless as her shocked expression. A drop of perspiration threatened the perfection of her makeup. Her social reign crumbled with each passing second, with each person who discreetly moved away from her circle of influence. Her carefully constructed world of superficial status, built over decades of calculated social climbing, had been dismantled in seconds by a man who didn't even need to raise his voice. True power, as Dan had demonstrated without saying a word, wasn't in the diamonds or titles. It wasn't in designer labels or social pedigrees. It was in the ability to redefine the game with a single decisive move, transforming humiliation into triumph and exposing the fragility of hierarchies based on appearances. The real auction tonight hadn't been for a book at all, but for something far more valuable: dignity. Away from the auction house, under Manhattan's night sky, Olivia held the precious botany book against her chest. Her fingers delicately traced the worn leather cover, feeling the subtle cracks and imperfections that spoke of its journey through time. Streetlights cast a gentle glow over the couple as they walked in comfortable silence, the evening's dramatic event still reverberating between them. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly, her voice still carrying remnants of the evening's tension. "I would have understood if we'd lost the book. $1 million, Dan." Dan observed her face in the soft streetlight glow, seeing beyond the simplicity of her black dress to the woman who had captured his heart precisely because she cared nothing for his wealth. Her eyes reflected the same authenticity that had first drawn him to her, a rare quality in his world of calculated appearances and strategic relationships. "It wasn't for the book," he replied, gently touching her face. His thumb traced the curve of her cheekbone with tenderness that contrasted sharply with the power he had wielded minutes earlier. "It was for you." A smile played on his lips, though seeing Mrs. Sinclair's expression was quite satisfying. A laugh escaped Olivia, the sound like crystal breaking the evening air, finally releasing the accumulated tension. She carefully opened the book to a page marked with a botanical illustration of a rare flowering plant. The yellowed paper revealed meticulous annotations in faded sepia ink flowing across the margins. "He used to tell me stories about these expeditions when I was little," she said, her voice soft with memory. "About plants that could heal anything, and explorers who traveled to the ends of the earth to find them. I always thought they were just stories." The sparkle in her eyes was no longer of contained tears of humiliation, but of genuine joy, a rediscovered connection to her own roots that no fortune could quantify. "Do you know why I fell in love with you?" Dan asked, adjusting a stubborn lock of her hair that the evening breeze had displaced. "Because that first day when we met, you were more interested in the history of the apple you were eating than in who I was or how much money I had." Olivia smiled, recalling the moment. "And I fell in love with you because when I told you that ridiculously long story about pollination, you actually listened." Dan took her hand, intertwining their fingers. The warmth of the connection said more than any public display of power ever could. "Let's go home. This place has had enough attention for today." They walked together along the busy sidewalk, the book secure between them, not as a trophy of social victory, but as a link between generations, a piece of personal history finally recovered. When they passed a small group of photographers hoping to capture the billionaire couple, Dan and Olivia simply continued walking, absorbed in their conversation about the plants illustrated in the book, two souls genuinely connected by something no auction could ever truly value. Well now, wasn't that a heartwarming story of unexpected triumph? Of all our tales about appearances and judgments, did this one touch your heart in a special way? Olivia reminds us that true value goes far beyond what meets the eye. A lesson we all need in this world of ours that's become so fixated on status and appearances. If this story resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been unfairly judged by your appearance? Or perhaps witnessed someone being dismissed before others knew their true story? Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories that challenge our perceptions and invite us to look beneath the surface. Hit that notification bell to be the first to receive our new tales of overcoming an unexpected triumph. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Our followers span the globe, and each perspective enriches our wonderful community. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that their worth isn't in the clothes they wear or the status they hold, but in the authenticity and purpose they carry in their heart. Until our next story of dramatic reversal that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about the people around you.